Incredible revelation, nurse exposes millionaire's wife's secret, changing his life forever. The morning sun streamed through the hospital windows, illuminating Sarah's tired yet resolute face. With 2 energetic kids at home, she knew every second mattered. This time, the stakes felt different. As she walked into Jack Thompson's hospital room, the air thickened with tension, a tension that only those close to wealth and privilege could understand. Jack, the reclusive millionaire of town, lay in a sterile hospital gown, his wealth offering no comfort against the illness he faced. Rebecca, his wife, sat stiffly in the corner, a portrait of cold glamour amid the warm, ordinary hum of the ward. As Sarah adjusted Jack's fall, she couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was brewing behind the lavish facade. The whispers of the town echoed in her mind, the stories of struggling families, those who worked hard every day yet barely scraped by. Behind her compassion lay a growing anger as she recognized the disconnect. Jack and Rebecca lived in a bubble far removed from the realities faced by their employees. She lingered a moment longer, adjusting the blankets around Jack's frail form, and caught Rebecca's eye. The tension crackled. "How does it feel to take from so many while living like kings?" The words threatened to escape her lips, but she swallowed hard instead. She knew better than to let her emotions loose. This job meant security for her children, a path to their future. But an odd courage sparked within her. It was a fleeting moment, the weight of her conviction colliding with the fear of losing everything. Every day she battled for those in pain, for souls clinging to hope amidst despair. Why should she not extend that fight to greater injustices? The thought twisted in her chest, a realization rising like bile. How many of Jack's employees were suffering, trapped by the very wealth that kept him comfortable? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Turning back to Rebecca, the tension spilled over. "You know, many of your husband's employees can barely feed their families. It's unjust." The words hung in the air like cancer in remission, sweet relief mingled with bitter truth. Rebecca's face flushed, a symphony of emotion sketching itself across her refined features. "You don't understand, Sarah," she snapped, her voice high and defensive. "This is how the world works." Sarah's heart raced, a mixture of indignation and empathy overwhelmed her. The confrontation clawed at the fabric of their existence. This was the moment when the air shifted in town. Secrets rotted beneath the gleaming veneer of wealth, and Sarah felt the pulse of her community quickening. Her stomach churned with uncertainty. Could she really be a voice for the oppressed? As Sarah prepared to leave, the weight of the world lingered over her. Would the truth take hold, igniting a movement that could lift her neighbors? With her heart pounding and the path before her unclear, she knew one thing: sometimes, a single act of courage could stir a revolution. The stakes had never been higher, and her community was watching. Would she rise to the challenge? The days that followed Sarah's confrontation were a whirlwind. The air in the hospital felt different, charged and electric. Gossip exchanged like currency among the staff, every whisper weighed heavy with possibility. Sarah found herself at the center of a storm she could hardly fathom. Each time she entered Jack's room, she felt Rebecca's eyes on her, piercing and accusatory. It was a challenge, a silent duel that left Sarah both invigorated and terrified. At home, the chaos of her children was a welcome distraction. Little Emily tugged at her apron, giggling as her brother, Ben, tried to juggle 3 balls he'd made out of socks. But even the laughter seemed muted against the thought of the lives Jack's wealth controlled. Sarah's heart twisted whenever she thought of the employees she'd treated over the years, those with stories of struggle and hardship that echoed inside her heart. One such story was that of Maria, a single mother who worked 2 jobs just to keep her family afloat. Maria was always smiling, though the weight of the world was visibly etched on her face. Sarah remembered a late-night conversation they'd had in the hospital break room, the 2 women sharing dreams of a better life for their children. Maria's dream was simple: security, love, and a chance for her kids to thrive. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that Jack and Rebecca operated in a realm that was actively suffocating that dream. One evening, after a long shift, Sarah decided to visit Maria. The sun was setting, painting the sky in vibrant orange hues, a stark contrast to the grayness that often clouded her thoughts. As she sat down across from Maria, Sarah felt a sense of urgency. "Maria, do you ever think about what it would be like to change things? To stand up together for what is right?" Maria's eyes widened. "You mean, stand up to them? The Thompsons. They're untouchable. They have all the power. But what if we're not alone? What if we reach out to the others?" Sarah's pulse quickened as she spoke, the fire of determination igniting inside her. Maria looked hesitant but intrigued. "You really think they'd listen? They're just so far above us." In that moment, Sarah shared her idea. Not just for herself, but for everyone who felt trapped. Maria leaned in, disbelief melting into cautious hope. By the time Sarah left, she carried with her not just the weight of their conversations but also a spark that felt alive. The next day at the hospital, Sarah gathered her courage. She approached some of the other nurses and staff during their breaks. "What if we formed a group?" she asked. "A network. We could share stories and bring attention to the struggles everyone faces because of circumstances like Jack's wealth." The response was a mixture of skepticism and hope, but slowly, more people began to nod in agreement. However, not everyone was on board. During one lunch break, Lisa, a nurse known for her loyalty to the Thompsons, shot Sarah a sharp look. "You really think this is a good idea? Do you want to risk your job? People are hungry, but they're not ready for a fight." Sarah swallowed hard. "But isn't it worth trying? What if we could actually make a difference?" Lisa's silence was heavy, filled with doubt. But behind Sarah, the whispers continued. The stories poured out, each one coloring the air with a mix of pain and determination. Sarah's heart raced. Could they really ignite change? As she stood among her colleagues, she felt a shift within her, a bond forming as they shared their fears and hopes. With each story, she sensed the beginning of something greater, a collective power surging through the room. Then, like thunder from an approaching storm, the door swung open. Jack appeared in the doorway, still weak but undeniably present. "What is going on in here? What are you all talking about?" Everyone froze. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she caught his eye. Would she finally stand up, or would fear hold her back again? The moment hung suspended. What would she reveal now? Time seemed to stand still as Jack's gaze swept across the room. The whispers died down, leaving an almost unbearable silence. Sarah could feel the weight of her colleagues' expectations. They somehow looked to her, as if she were the unspoken leader of this fragile uprising. She collected her thoughts, her breathing coming in measured gasps. When the silence became too much, she found her voice. "Jack, we were discussing the challenges many of us face at work, especially the impact of wealth disparities like yours." The words stumbled out, trembling but resolute. Jack regarded her, his brow furrowing. "Wealth disparities. I thought everyone was grateful for their jobs." Behind his intensity, a flicker of uncertainty shone through. "It's not that simple," Sarah pressed on. We are all part of the same system, but not everyone benefits equally. People struggle while others thrive. It creates resentment, fear, and sometimes, desperation. Each word felt like a charge, fueling the air already thick with tension. Ben, one of the younger nurses, stepped forward, emboldened by Sarah's strength. My mother lost her job at the diner after the Thompson family bought it out. She's been trying to find work ever since. His voice trembled slightly, but his expression held a fire that matched Sarah's. Jack shifted on his feet, his face a mask of confusion. I didn't know, but businesses make tough decisions to survive. The economy isn't easy right now. Rebecca's voice cut through like a knife. This is absurd, Jack. They're just trying to manipulate you into feeling guilty. Her eyes were ice cold, locking onto Sarah and the other staff like a predator sizing up its prey. We've worked hard to earn what we have. Everyone needs to do the same. Hard work isn't always enough. Sarah shouted back before she could stop herself. Some people work harder than you know, yet fall further behind. It's not just about dollars, it's human lives. The room crackled with energy, a wave of shared frustration. The mix of disbelief, anger, and courage fueled them as silent allies. Sarah stood tall, hope slashing through her veins. Was this truly happening? Jack took a step closer, softening just a fraction. What do you want me to do? Start giving my money away. The challenge in his voice was unmistakable, but there was also a sense that he was beginning to feel the impact of their words. No, Sarah replied quickly. We want you to listen. We want the chance to share our stories to find a way together. Change isn't about charity, it's about understanding each other's struggles. A long pause hung in the air. Jack glanced at his wife, who was fuming, then back at Sarah. Underneath the bravado, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Understanding. The tension shifted as murmurs began again, excitement and fear blending together among the staff. Jack's presence had sparked a dynamic that could no longer be ignored. Just then, the tension was interrupted by a ringing phone in a nearby pocket. Maria's name flashed across the screen of one of the nurses' phones, and that shifted the focus. It's the night shift, a nurse said, distracted. Suddenly, panic washed over Sarah. We need to leave, this is a distraction. We should gather outside, bring everyone together. Jack's brow furrowed deeper, confusion turning to a hint of intrigue. You really think you can go out there, confront the truth of your struggles, and actually make a difference? Sarah nodded, her conviction swelling. We can try. Don't you want to see the change we could create together? Neither Jack nor Rebecca said a word, but their expressions were a finely tuned balance of alarm and curiosity. That moment would be pivotal. It could ignite a change or shatter their unity altogether. Would Jack finally choose to join them? Or would this be just another moment that slipped away like so many before? Sarah could feel her heart racing, palpitating with urgency. If they took this leap, who would stand beside her? Would her growing network find strength in numbers or splinter under pressure? As she stood on the precipice of that change, one crucial question loomed: was she ready to fight for the future, no matter the cost? The air felt electric as the group huddled together, their collective breaths creating a rhythm of shared resolve. Each nurse, each technician, all the weary-hearted souls who cared day in and day out for their community were waiting. They looked to Sarah, their makeshift leader, ready to step into the unknown. Let us move, she urged, her voice barely above a whisper yet filled with determination. She started towards the doors, her heart pounding like a drum as the others formed a line behind her, stepping into uncharted territory. As they stepped outside, the world felt different. The sun hung low, casting a warm glow that contrasted with the icy tension in the air. Cars drifted idly past as local families went about their routines, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing at the hospital. Sarah's eye scanned the parking lot, and she noticed some familiar faces among the drivers. She could feel their eyes on her, curious and confused. Jack lingered behind, caught between two worlds. He glanced at Sarah, then at Rebecca, who continued to cling to her critical stance. "You really think anyone cares what we have to say?" he asked, the disbelief softening to skepticism beneath it. "Let us make them care," Sarah replied, her heart racing as they reached the sidewalk. "Let us show them our stories matter." Ben joined her side, bolstered by her spirit. "If we don't speak up, nothing changes. My mom didn't just lose her job, she lost her dignity. And we can't let that happen to anyone else." Jack bit his lip, wrestling with the turmoil within him. He wanted to shut this down, to walk back inside to the comfort of his office where problems were solved with spreadsheets and meetings. But as he listened to Ben's plea, a strange feeling tugged at him. Could he really turn a blind eye? "Let us organize a gathering," Sarah suggested, her voice growing stronger. "A rally in front of the hospital. If we share our stories, we can reach the community and maybe even Jack. We can show that our struggles are real." The crowd of staff behind them stirred with murmurs of agreement. Excitement rippled as the possibilities began to glow brighter than the setting sun. But then, Rebecca's sharp voice cut through. "What do we think this will accomplish? People love their cushy lives, they want to hear our whining." Her words hung in the air, provoking uncertainty among the group. But Sarah could feel the fire in her chest. "It's not whining. It's about opening eyes. We need to speak out about what really matters. The fear, the sacrifices, it's going to resonate." Jack stood at a crossroads, caught in the tides of their beliefs. "And if we do this," he finally said, his voice low but clear, "how do we keep the focus where it belongs? The hospital can't be blamed for everything. This isn't just about me." "You are right," Sarah replied, unflinching. "It's about all of us. It's about systemic issues that affect real lives. We need to engage with those in power, not as victims but as a community demanding change." Jack hesitated. Beneath the bravado, a layer of guilt simmered, a conflict of self-interest versus the need for justice. He felt trapped in a delicate balance. The truth was becoming harder to ignore. What if Sarah was right? Just then, Maria arrived, still clutching her phone with a worried expression. "The shifts, they've been talking about layoffs. What do we do?" The collective anxiety surged again, and Sarah understood the stakes just escalated. They weren't merely advocating for change, this was survival. As they rallied together, determination sparked in their eyes, the small crowd transforming into a force. Sarah felt the warmth of courage bolster her heart, and she raised her chin defiantly. "We want to back down. We want to go quietly into the night." With that declaration, she looked over her shoulder at Jack. He was grappling with a choice that could redefine him. But what Sarah didn't expect was for Jack to step forward, a flicker of resolve igniting in his demeanor. "I'll help you, but I can't tell you how this will end." The moment hung precariously, the future was wide open. Would Jack finally embrace the truth, or would fear hold him back yet again? The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the pavement, and Sarah felt the weight of Jack's commitment settle firmly upon her shoulders. The crowd buzzed around them, excitement mingling with tension. Every gaze reflected a mix of hope and trepidation. "Okay, then," Sarah exclaimed, her voice steady. "Let us meet every evening this week to organize. We can brainstorm our stories and discuss how we'll get the community involved." Faces lit up at the prospect, and small nods echoed through the group. As they began to disperse, a sense of purpose colored the atmosphere. Sarah watched the nurses, techs, and aides head toward their cars, each step a silent promise of change. Jack lingered a moment longer, rubbing the back of his neck, unsure of his next move. "Do you really think they'll listen?" he asked, a hint of vulnerability cracking through his mask of confidence. "We have to believe they will," Sarah replied, meeting his gaze with fierceness. "If no one listens, we'll just have to make them." In the days that followed, the hospital buzzed with whispers of the impending rally. Posters were hastily crafted, stories were penned, and meetings turned into powerful sessions of emotion and recollection. Laughter mingled with tears as colleagues shared their experiences. For many, it was cathartic, an unburdening of the weight they had silently carried. Jack appeared more frequently, his reservations slowly dissipating. He found himself listening intently as people spoke, their voices trembling with fear and frustration but also firm with the strength that had emerged from their shared struggles. Something within him began to shift. Their stories broke through the walls he had built around himself, walls forged from a fear of conflict and discomfort. "Maybe it's time for me to really understand what I've been avoiding," he admitted to Sarah one evening, after listening to a nurse describe the moment she learned about the layoffs. Just before the rally, Sarah received a shocking message. It was from Maria, her voice trembling over the phone. "Sarah, you need to come to my place right now. I think I found something huge." Heart racing, Sarah alerted the group. "Guys, we need to gather at Millionaire'S. There is something important we all need to see." As they arrived at Maria's home, the air felt thick with curiosity and anxiety. Maria led them into her modest living room, the walls lined with photographs of friends and family. In the center of the room sat a glowing laptop, and Maria's finger hovered over the keyboard, hesitating. "Just show us," Ben urged, his brow furrowed with worry. Maria took a deep breath and pressed enter. The screen filled with documents, news articles, and financial statements connecting a web of deceit that swirled around the hospital's management. Discussions of budget cuts lined with lavish spending habits of the owners became apparent, and gasps echoed through the room. "No way," Jack breathed, leaning closer. "This can't be real." "Yes, it is," Maria insisted, her eyes wide with the realization of what they'd stumbled upon. "This is why they're laying people off. They're not just cutting costs, they're redirecting funds to their own pockets." The mood shifted, a surge of anger igniting their collective resolve. Sarah's heart raced, a new urgency consuming her thoughts. "We have to bring this to the community," she said, her voice unsteady yet filled with newfound determination. "This can't go unnoticed. This is bigger than just us." But in the silence that followed, doubt crept back in, lingering like a heavy fog. What if they retaliate? What if nothing changes? Jack asked, truly afraid now. Sarah met his gaze, the fire inside her unwavering. "Then we keep pushing. We can't let fear dictate our actions anymore. We have to hold them accountable." Just then, a knock echoed through the room, freezing them in place. "Who could that be?" Rebecca whispered, her face pale. As Sarah turned toward the door, a chill raced down her spine. Whatever awaited them on the other side could change everything. Would they step into the light of truth, or would secrets shroud their efforts just as they seemed ready to rise? The knocking grew louder, punctuating the tense silence in the room. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she moved cautiously toward the door, a mix of dread and curiosity tightening her throat. The others crowded behind her, their bodies tense and ready for anything. "Should I open it?" she asked, glancing over her shoulder. The group exchanged worried looks, their eyes darting between her and the door. "Yeah, but be careful," Jack urged, staying close behind her. Taking a deep breath, Sarah turned the knob and pulled the door open, revealing a woman standing in the dim light of the porch. She was clad in a long coat, her dark hair framing her face, which wore an expression of urgency that stopped Sarah in her tracks. "Is this the group from the hospital?" the woman asked, her voice low but steady. "Yes," Sarah replied cautiously. "Who are you?" "My name is Lisa. I used to work in the administration office of your hospital." Lisa cast a glance over her shoulder, then stepped quickly inside, closing the door behind her. "I have information that might help you, but it's dangerous." "What do you mean?" Maria asked, her brows knitting together. Lisa's eyes darted around the room, her demeanor exhibiting both fear and determination. "I overheard some conversations. Big decisions, plans being made that directly affect the lives of your coworkers." She paused, swallowing hard. "They are planning to use the mess you found to smear your efforts. They paint you as troublemakers." "Troublemakers?" Jack echoed incredulously. "We are just trying to hold them accountable." "That is exactly why you need to be careful," Lisa warned, stepping closer. "They're ruthless. I came to help you because I believe you're doing the right thing, but they're not just going to sit back and let this happen. They might retaliate, and they have more power than you know." A chill ran through the group as the weight of her words settled in. Sarah felt the air thicken with fear, but a spark of resolve ignited in her heart. "We can't back down now. We're not alone in this," she said fiercely. "But we need a plan," Ben interjected, running a hand through his hair. "How do we fight this?" "I have documents, proof that they are hiding funds," Lisa said, her eyes intent. "If you can gather the community's support, the media might take notice. They want to be able to sweep this under the rug if people know the truth." Sarah looked around at her friends, their faces a mixture of determination and apprehension. "We can't just sit back. We have to rally the community. But we also have to guard ourselves against their retaliation." Maria stepped forward, fire in her eyes. "Let us use what we have. We can bring Lisa's evidence to our rally, show them we're not backing down." "Exactly," Sarah agreed, her mind racing. "We need to reframe the narrative. If we go in armed with facts, they can't just dismiss us. We become the story." As they began to formulate their strategy, another knock rattled the door. This time, a sense of urgency gripped them. "What now?" Rebecca asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Stay quiet," Lisa urged, her expression suddenly grave. "If they're already onto you, they might have sent someone to intimidate you. We can't risk being found out." Sarah's heart raced anew. Tension coiled tightly among the group, thick enough to grab. Who could be on the other side of that door? Would it be a friend, or the very enemy they were preparing to face? "Stay close," Jack said, his voice low and commanding. "Whatever happens, don't panic." As the sounds of footsteps approached, Sarah could feel the heat of adrenaline coursing through her. They had to be ready for anything. With every second that passed, the storm of uncertainty brewed around them. Would they stand united against the oncoming storm, or would fear tear them apart just as they were gaining momentum? The real battle was about to begin. The footsteps slowed outside, accompanied by a voice that sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. "This is the police. Open up." Gasps erupted in the room. The group's fear transformed into a tight knot of anxiety. "What do we do?" Ben whispered, his eyes wide. "Is it a trap?" Maria asked, glancing at Sarah and Lisa. "Could be," Lisa replied, her voice low but steady. "We can't just open it. Not yet. We can't let them in. If they're here to intimidate us." Jack's voice trailed off as he clenched his fists in determination. "Everyone just stay quiet," Sarah urged, trying to calm the rising panic. She could feel her heart thumping loudly in her ears. They'll go away if we don't answer. But the pressure was mounting, and the officer continued to speak. We've received reports of disturbances in the area. Open the door now or we will be forced to enter. Maybe it was that last sentence that intensified the moment, or perhaps it was the sharp inhale of her friends filling the air, but Sarah felt an unexpected surge of defiance. Here they were, on the brink of exposing a system that had wronged so many, and now they were going to let fear paralyze them. Not today. I'm going to check, she said abruptly, her decision catching everyone off guard. Are you crazy? Rebecca exclaimed, her voice barely contained. You can't just trust me, Sarah cut her off. I'll be careful. She looked to Jack, and for a moment, she thought she might see anger in his eyes. But it was quickly replaced by concern. Just be safe, he replied quietly, his voice thick with unspoken tension. With one last deep breath, Sarah approached the door. She peered through the peephole and saw a uniformed officer standing there, her stern expression softened slightly by the glow of the porch light. Was she really there to help, or was it just part of the ruse? Do you need to speak with us? Sarah called out, her voice steady. Yes, the officer replied. It's important we talk. Taking another steadying breath, Sarah opened the door just a crack, enough to catch a glimpse of the woman's face and the badge that glinted in the light. What is this about? We're investigating a situation involving your hospital. We have reason to believe corruption is being concealed. The officer's voice was calm, professional. And we need your assistance. A wave of disbelief washed over Sarah. Could it be? Were they finally getting the support they so desperately needed? We need to come to an understanding first, Sarah stammered, glancing back at Lisa and the others, who were wide-eyed, caught between hope and caution. What do you know? I can't disclose too much until I know you're not in danger. There are forces at play here, and it's vital I can trust you. The officer leaned closer, lowering her voice. You might be in more danger than you realize. The warning hung in the air, heavy with implications. Sarah swallowed, her heart battling against the tide of hope and dread. What were they up against? And if they were right about the retaliation, how would they protect themselves? Behind her, she glimpsed their worried faces, each echoing her silent question, could they really trust this officer? Before she could decide, the door creaked open wider, the officer's hand extended into the room. We need to talk. Now. As Sarah stepped back to let her inside, a thought flickered through her mind. What if this was the turning point? What if this was the help they had been seeking? Or was it just another trap set by the very people they were fighting? The end of one struggle felt like the beginning of another. The shadow of the unknown loomed larger, wrapping them in anticipation. What secrets would emerge from this conversation, and could they unravel the tangled web before it ensnared them all? The officer stepped inside, her presence imposing yet oddly reassuring. Sarah noticed the way the officer scanned the room, her gaze settling on each person as if assessing their spirit. The tension hung like fog, thick and suffocating. Everyone, this is Officer Reed, Sarah introduced, her voice steadier than she felt. We are all involved in a project related to the hospital. More like trying to expose it, Ben muttered, a mix of fear and defiance threading his tone. Reed took a moment to collect herself, then leaned against the wall, folding her arms. I know that you're fighting against a powerful machine, she began, her voice serious. But you all need to understand there are eyes everywhere. If they find out you're involved. Her words trailed off, the implication stark. What are you saying? Lisa asked, her voice trembling slightly. I've encountered resistance before, Reed continued, her brow furrowing as she looked around at their faces. I've seen good people get hurt. We can do this safely, but you need to trust me. What do you need from us? Sarah's voice cut through the air, sharp and piercing. She stared into Officer Reed's eyes, searching for truth. I need your testimony, Reed replied, matching Sarah's intensity. We've been monitoring some unusual activities at the hospital. If you have evidence, anything that can connect the dots, it could help build a case. A delicate silence filled the space as Sarah exchanged glances with her friends. They were bound by fear but also by an emerging resolve. Could this be the breakthrough they needed? What if we refuse? Jack finally asked, his voice steady but his eyes betrayed a flicker of worry. Reed's expression hardened. If you refuse, things could go south very quickly. They'll come after you. This isn't just about lives lost or unreported malpractices. It's about covering up a web of corruption that reaches high into the local government. And trust me, they won't think twice about silencing anyone who stands in their way. Sarah's heart raced as she processed the weight of Reed's words. Her friends appeared divided. Some leaned toward fear, while others sparked with a flicker of hope within the darkness. We might be risking everything here, Rebecca whispered, trembling. But what if we could actually help? That is the question, isn't it? Sarah turned to Officer Reed again. What happens if we do cooperate? If you cooperate, we can trace the corruption and hold those responsible accountable. It won't be easy. But it can change lives, yours included. A slight edge of desperation crept into Reed's voice. You've already taken the first step by standing up. Don't let fear force you back into silence. The air was charged. Could they really move forward with this dangerous alliance? Sarah leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. Despite the icy dread swirling within, a yearning for justice sparked in her heart. How many lives could they save? Let us do it, Sarah finally said, her voice reflecting resolve. For a moment, everyone held their breath. Then, one by one, others nodded, the collective decision binding them in a shared promise. As the confirmation settled, a flicker of fear passed through Sarah's mind. What if they were making a monumental mistake? Just then, a sudden crash outside shattered her thoughts, a loud bang followed by yelling. They all jumped. Officer Reed's face paled. I think they know, she gasped. Know what? Ben asked frantically, his hands trembling. That you're involved. Time seemed to freeze as they all absorbed the reality of the danger lurking outside their walls. Sarah's chest tightened, and for a brief moment, the world flipped on its axis. They were no longer just fighting for the truth now, they were fighting for their lives. Get ready, Reed said urgently, we have to leave. Now. The panic was a wild storm now. As Sarah turned to grab her bag, a vision of the future crossed her mind, a path lined with both hope and danger. What would happen next? Would they be able to survive the onslaught? Or would they fall victim to the very corruption they sought to expose? The stakes had never been higher. The group shifted into action, hearts pounding as they hurried through the narrow hallway of the abandoned building. Each footstep echoed like a warning bell in the tense silence, the weight of Reed's words hanging heavy. They were stepping into uncharted territory, where shadows concealed threats, and every decision could lead to peril. Which way? Lisa stammered, her voice tight, glancing back nervously as if expecting someone to leap from the shadows. Reed pushed her lips into a thin line, considering their options. Down the back stairs. It leads to a side entrance. We can slip through without being seen. Please hurry, Jack urged, his eyes darting around, always on the lookout. We don't have much time. The officer led the way, and everyone followed close behind, the adrenaline coursing through them like a live wire. Sarah's mind raced. They had just decided to fight back, but what if they were already too late? What if exposing the truth meant losing everything they held dear? Her heart sank at the thoughts chasing after her like wraiths. As they reached the staircase, Sarah paused, her breath catching. She glanced back at the group, their faces twisted with fear and determination. "This is it," she said quietly, the truth dawning on her. "Once we step out, there's no going back." "Exactly," Reed replied, turning to meet Sarah's gaze with a fierce intensity. "But we can't let fear control us. This is bigger than ourselves." The words fueled a flicker of hope within Sarah. They could be the ones to turn the tide, but at what cost? Shaking her head to clear the dark thoughts, she took the first step down. Halfway down, a sudden crash shattered the air, like glass breaking. They all froze. Sarah's stomach twisted as the sound of heavy footsteps thundered their way, drowning out the pounding of her heart. "Go. Now!" Reed shouted, her eyes wide, urging them onward. They rushed the last few steps, bursting through the door that led outside. Breathless, the brightness of the streetlights blinded Sarah for a second. She took in the night, a seemingly ordinary neighborhood hiding a storm within its shadows. "Where do we go?" Ben asked, panic seeping into his voice. "I know a safe place," Reed replied, scanning the neighborhood. "Follow me." They ran, adrenaline propelling them forward, weaving through quiet side streets, the world around them blurring in the rush. Real fatigue set in as they turned corner after corner, the tension thickening in the air. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being pursued, even if there were no visible signs. As they ducked behind a row of parked cars, her lungs burned, but she felt alive. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a chance to take control, perhaps even some semblance of justice. Reed glanced back, reading the expressions on their faces. "Keep your voices low," she instructed, catching her breath. "We are not safe yet." In that moment of quiet, Sarah felt a shift. She could see the resolve building among her friends. They weren't just scared youngsters anymore, they were warriors in a cause. But what would happen when they finally confronted the repercussions of this war against corruption? Just as that thought settled in her mind, Sarah spotted a figure at the edge of the light, a man in a dark coat, watching with an intensity that made her blood run cold. "Reed, look," she hissed, pointing towards him. "Stay down," she whispered, her voice low and steady. A new wave of dread washed over Sarah. Who was he? What did he know? As the man stepped closer, their eyes met. In that fleeting moment, something passed between them, an unspoken understanding, a flash of danger that froze Sarah's heart in her chest. The night was far from over, and she sensed they were walking a treacherous tightrope. What did he really want? Would they escape this nightmare unscathed? The man paused, his face partially obscured by shadow, studying Sarah with an intensity that raised goosebumps along her arms. The tension thickened around them. Sarah could barely hear the muted thuds of her heart over the rush of adrenaline that coursed through her veins. "Get down," Reed hissed again, her voice low but urgent. Jack, thinking quickly, pulled Sarah behind the nearest car just as the stranger stepped into the light. With each heartbeat, Sarah could feel the weight of her decision pulling her in two directions, fight or flight. "What do we do, Sarah?" Ben mumbled, panic lacing his voice as he crouched close. "Just wait," she whispered, her mind racing. They needed to stay calm, to figure this out together. The man was now inspecting the parking lot, moving purposefully, though his gaze didn't seem to indicate he was searching for anyone. He passed their hiding spot without further incident, but Sarah could feel the tension in Reed's body. She was a coiled spring ready to snap. "What if he calls for backup?" Lisa whispered, her eyes wide. "What do we do then?" "We have to keep moving," Sarah said, trying to infuse strength into her trembling voice. "We can't let them get the upper hand." Suddenly, Reed pulled out her phone, eyes narrowing on the figure in the distance. "I can call for backup," she said. "They might want to catch this guy." "Are you nuts?" Jack exclaimed. "What if he hears you?" Reed shook her head, her jaw set. "We're already in it. I want to make sure we're safe." "Just be quiet," Sarah shot back, keeping her voice low. "If he doesn't spot us, let us try to slip around the other side of the cars." Everyone nodded, and with that, they moved in unison, carefully navigating the row of vehicles, keeping their footsteps light. Just as they reached the far end of the parking lot, the man turned back around. "Going somewhere?" he called, his voice smooth as glass but laced with menace. Fear gripped Sarah's heart, and she motioned for everyone to duck down low behind a sedan. Suddenly, the night felt heavier, burdened with betrayal and threat. "He knows," Ben murmured, panic edging his voice again. "We can't panic," Sarah insisted, trying to maintain control. "We've faced so much already, we can face this too." Reed's phone vibrated in her pocket, and she caught a glimpse of Officer Reed's unsure face. "This isn't good." "Then let us move," Sarah urged, scanning for an exit that wouldn't draw attention. "Maybe we can circle around the corner and find somewhere to hide." "Right over there." Lisa pointed towards a dimly lit alley. Steeling herself, Sarah nodded, and they all darted towards the alley, hearts pounding as they slipped into the darkness. They pressed against the cool, rough wall, breathless and shaken. In that moment of hush, the world felt impossibly quiet. It was as if they were enveloped in a protective bubble, the chaos waiting just outside. "I don't know how much longer we can keep this up," Reed murmured, her voice tinged with trepidation. "They'll find us sooner or later." Taking a leap of faith, Sarah looked directly into Reed's eyes. "We need to stand together. They won't stop until they silence us. This is our chance. We have to follow through, no matter the cost." "What if we find a way to record everything we've seen?" Jack suggested suddenly, his mind racing. "We could document the corruption. If this is as big as we think, maybe it could reach the media." Eyes lit with dawning realization, Sarah felt the energy shift. "Yes. If we get proof, they can't ignore us. We could show the community and hold those in power accountable. Then we need to rally all these stories together," Reed pushed, heart racing at the prospect of urgency fueling the decision-making. "Every story counts, and if we collect them," they all nodded, the weight of their decisions morphing into a new fire. It wasn't just about safety anymore, it was about justice. But they had to move quickly. "Okay, we must find a way to gather information, but we have to be discreet and careful." Sarah glanced over the dimly lit alley, the night air filled with the scent of impending rain. Every second counts. Just then, the sounds of approaching footsteps echoed in the distance. "They're coming," Reed whispered urgently, making everyone jump into action. "We need to move now." Everyone slipped deeper into the shadows as the footsteps grew nearer, anxiety tightening around their throats. "Let us go," Sarah whispered as she picked up the pace, the intensity of their mission fueling her steps. "We can't give up now." Guided by the uncertainty of their fate and the flicker of hope, they pressed on through the darkness. After some time, they emerged into a small clearing, illuminated by the soft glow of a street lamp. Before them sat an old community center, slightly worn but standing strong against the night. "Maybe we can take refuge in there," Jack suggested, hope sparking in his voice. "Let us check it out," Sarah replied, her heart racing. If they could find a place to gather and strategize, maybe they could turn the tide. As they stepped inside, they were met with the smell of dusty wood and the echo of faded memories. The room was empty but filled with potential, a meeting space for their stories, a safe haven for gathering strength. The group quickly moved to close the door behind them, ensuring their sanctity. Let us gather everything we have, every story, every piece of evidence. If we can make plans here, we'll have the upper hand, Sarah urged, her voice steady with newfound conviction. As they sat around the table, an unspoken bond formed. They were warriors, supporters of change, and drawing strength from each other's resolve. Though shadows loomed outside, a spark ignited within the group. Together they would fight not just for themselves but for every person whose voice had been silenced, for every life impacted by greed, for every dream that had been crushed. As Sarah looked around the table at the faces of her friends, she felt a wave of determination wash over her. They would not be moved. The fight was just beginning, but the real strength lay in unity. With hearts full of courage and minds focused on justice, they were ready to stand against the storm. Let us start this journey, Sarah declared, her message filled with urgency. For our community. For all of us. This is our moment. And in that abandoned spirit of the community center, filled with love and hope, they knew together, they could explode the darkness, and the change they sought would echo beyond their wildest dreams. As the dawn began to break on the horizon, they could feel the tides shifting, their determination to reclaim what had been lost shaped the world to come. Now it was time to rise and make their voices heard. If you felt the power of this story, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button and help feed the algorithm. We want to hear your reactions and feelings about this ending, so comment below. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformation. Let's lift each other up and create change together.